an attack in Syria, and we had 3 great patriots terminated by bad people, and not the Syrian government. It was ISIS. Syrian government fought by our side. The new president fought by our side. But I just want to pay my respects to the families. I can tell you in Syria, there will be a lot of damage done to the people that did it. They got the individual person, but there'll be big damage done.
Hudson Institute senior fellow and former Army paratrooper Aaron McLean on the Syrian shooting and President Trump's response.
You'll recall that President Trump has a history of extremely strong retaliation when Americans are killed. If you think back to 2019, when the Iranians were engaged in a lot of misbehavior throughout the Middle East, the president demonstrated great restraint right up until an American contractor was killed in December of 2019. Shortly thereafter, the president ordered the killing of Qasem Soleimani, the overall commander of essentially Iranian terrorism in the region. I suspect that what is being planned over at the Pentagon right now is something designed to achieve a similar level of shock within the ISIS structure.
At least 15 people are dead, including the shooter, in a horrific attack at a Hanukkah celebration in Sydney, Australia yesterday. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham reacts.
Radical Islam wants to kill all the Jews. They want to kill 2 soldiers from Iowa. This is a religious war. They hate us because we're Christians, we're infidels, and they want to kill all the Jews. To the Australian government, you let your people down.
Actor and filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Singer, were found dead Sunday at their home in Los Angeles. Authorities are investigating it as an apparent homicide. Authorities said they both died of stab wounds. Former homicide detective Brian Foley says LAPD detectives will not reveal much about the murders.
Well, as a homicide detective, you want as very little information getting out there as possible. Unless you want it to get out there, they're going to be very tight-lipped. This is not an active scene in that there's an active danger there. So now this becomes a highly forensic scene. And what the detectives, I can tell you, are doing right now are securing search warrants. They need a search warrant to search a victim's house. This is a stabbing. And what do I always say? Stabbing is a very intimate and emotional crime. And almost always the victim is known to the suspect.
Reactions continue after the University of Oklahoma removed one of its teaching assistants. This after the person reportedly gave a student a 0 for giving a biblical response to an essay question.
AFN's reported previously about University of Oklahoma student Samantha Fulnecke, who referenced her Christian beliefs and the Bible on an assignment about gender and sexuality. Ryan Haney is Vice President for Legal Affairs for the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs, or OCPA for short. He explained his team was able to sit down and speak with Fulnecke on a podcast about what happened. Haney explained that Fulnecke had gotten full credit on every assignment up until that one.
And on that one, she had she was assigned an article that discussed gender roles, traditional gender roles, and how reinforcing those with children are not helpful. And she responded, in the way that a young Christian would. She explained her Christian worldview and how she felt about it, and she received a 0.
Haney said this is another example in a long line of cases where our institutions of higher education are discriminating against students for their religious beliefs instead of helping them seek truth.
The university deciding to remove this professor, frankly, it shouldn't have taken this instance, right? Like, this is a person who is confused about their gender, doesn't know their sex, is a self-described transgender person, and the university is allowing this person to teach upper division psychology classes. That should never happen.
Haney added that there was another grade in the course where Fulnecke received half credit for a similar reason as this. He said she appealed the 0 and that both of these grades will not contribute to her score in the class. I'm Bronson Woodruff.
For American Family News, I'm Mr. Pugh.
At Wesley Biblical Seminary, we believe God is raising up a movement across our nation and around the world who hold fast to the inerrancy of Scripture and the hope of holiness. We do this through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees, certificate programs, and even training for lay people. So whatever your next step is in being equipped for ministry, we're here for you. And if you believe these are the kind of pastors we need leading churches in the future, we invite you to think about giving to Wesley Biblical Seminary. Learn more about us at wbs.edu.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today's Issues, the name of this program. It's Monday, December the 15th, 2025. I'm Tim Wildmon, and in studio with me is Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Fred Jackson.
Hi there, Tim.
And, fellas, we got 10 days. 10 days of
10 days till Christmas. It's December 15th.
Yep. So we
doing
are
a little quick math, and that's 10 days.
Yeah,
You're right.
10 days to
I had to check the math on that.
To the shopping. I'm reminding people about the shopping that may need to be done for your friends and family members. But anyway.
Or favorite, talk show hosts, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
There may be people out there saying, I wonder what Tim, Ed, and Fred would like for Christmas.
And then it's fleeting.
Thought is fleeting.
Thought is fleeting. There's a lot to talk about today on the program. Sadly, it's all bad.
Yeah.
It's just, it's just tragic news since Friday, Saturday, since, I don't know, last 3 or 4 days. It's just been terrible. The news, the stories that have been leading the news. We'd like to have happier things to talk about, especially around the holiday of Christmas and New Year's. And everybody's generally in a happy mood. But Fred, what's leading the news right now?
Well, still leading the news this morning is what happened in Australia on the weekend. I think probably most of our listeners have heard now. During a Hanukkah celebration, a group of Jews at I've never been to Australia, but apparently Bondi Beach is a very popular area in the Sydney area. And some Jews were celebrating Hanukkah, which had started on Friday, I guess it was. And 2 men, we now know a father and son, opened fire on that celebration. And we know at this point, 15 people killed and 38 injured. Probably a lot of it in our audience have seen some of the videos coming out of Australia. There were some people who were able to actually videotape one of the shooters. He was open fire, and what you see is a man with a long stem rifle, and he is shooting. Pop, pop, pop. That's what you hear. What another video that's come out is a man who runs up behind one of the shooters and grabs the gun out of his arms. He points that gun at one of the shooters, but then lets him go. We now know that man that probably stopped the shooting actually is a Syrian man. He's from Syria, immigrated to Australia. A couple of things that are coming out of all of this right now. Obviously, the reports and even the Associated Press, even the liberal media is saying that Australia has not done enough to combat anti-Semitism. There have been attacks on synagogues, attacks on other Israeli interests over the years. And Australia, one of those places that was advocating for a 2-state solution. Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel made that remark this morning. But here's the other thing that's being talked about. Australia has one of the strictest group of gun laws in the world, and yet this happened. But what is the reaction this morning, even amongst some here in the United States, some members of Congress, saying, and we're going to talk about another tragedy that occurred this weekend, but calling for gun laws. And it's just a reminder once again, it's not guns that create violence. It's the people who have those guns. So much to talk about this, but number one, it has attacked this father and son, both Muslims, and opened fire on these unarmed group of Jews there in Australia.
How many dead and how many injured?
15 dead, 38 injured at this point.
By one. There was 2 of them, but were both of them firing?
Yes, both firing, father and son. The father is dead. He was taken down by authorities. The son is in critical condition in an Australia hospital.
Yeah, he's in a coma.
Yeah.
And the people killed included a 10-year-old girl, a rabbi and a Holocaust survivor. Man, you survive the Holocaust and then die on a beach during Hanukkah. By the way, there's a good detailed story on afn.net for and keep your eyes open at afn.net for updates throughout the day as authorities continue to release details as they come to as details.
Is this just another case of Islamic jihadi murdering Jews because they're Jews? Is that what we got here?
That is the way it appears. Now, the man that you mentioned, Fred, that stopped the father, I think that was the father that he stopped. Yes. Incredibly, but I've seen the video of it, incredibly brave, courageous moment here. This was a Syrian. Do we know if he was Muslim as well? Do we don't know any details.
Syrian.
Probably
Good
was.
Chance he was.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but to your point, Tim, when they go radical, this is just stunning. A father and a son, and I've talked to some folks who go to the gun range on a lot. They said these two men, the father and son, had to have been practicing this for a long time because you have a beach full of fleeing people. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to get graphic here, but shooting at a stationary target is one thing. But 15 dead, 38 injured. These two individuals probably were preparing for this for a while.
Yes.
Which is just, we've talked
about
this.
So the gun control laws didn't stop this guy in Australia, and you're saying they have very strict gun control laws?
Some of the strictest in the world.
Okay. This is the point that needs to be, which is obvious, but needs to be stated again just for the record here. Guns don't kill people. People kill people with guns. Secondly, I don't know how hard that is for liberals to understand, the gun control proponents to understand. Secondly, and maybe this is as important to state as the first thing, is that bad guys are always going to find a way to get guns. All right? So, because it's a crime. It's criminal activity to murder people. So, why is that so hard to get through the liberal? I heard Elizabeth Warren, the senator from Massachusetts, and she was commenting on the shooter at Brown University. We're going to get to that story, which killed 2 people and left several injured over the weekend. That happened, of course, here in the U.S. But she said, when are we going to deal? We got to deal with gun violence. This is just, they say this every time something happens. And I'm going, what gun law are you going to pass that's going to keep people intent on murdering people from stopping them? I don't understand. Can you help me, Ed, in any way?
Well, I do.
What would they say?
I do want to make mention of the fact that from what I've read, the older of the 2 men, of the father and son, he owned these guns legally.
Yeah.
These were legally licensed firearm owners. You can go through a process in Australia to obtain guns legally.
Okay.
But it's very difficult and it's hugely expensive. That's my understanding. But to answer your question, I think what the left does on this issue is they say if there were no guns, you could not, obviously, you could not have shootings. And when you say, well, people kill with knives and they kill with other things, their answer, now I'm a firm supporter of the Second Amendment. I have an enhanced carry permit myself. Their answer to that is that guns are far more lethal than anything else a person with murderous intent would use to commit a crime. And so the second thing is true. It is more lethal to have a gun and to use it when you're trying to kill someone. But the first part is just living in la la land. we're not going to. The United States, my understanding is, I forget the exact number, 300 million. There's more guns in the United States than there are people. That's what I've typically heard. You're not going to get rid of those guns, and people have, in our country, a legal right to defend themselves. I always want to ask people who want to get rid of the Second Amendment, what percentage of people who legally own guns commit crimes with them? And that's got to be very, very small, which means people have these guns to defend themselves and they don't use them to commit crimes. But those are the two answers that you usually get. If we didn't have any guns, there'd be no gun crime, which is a duh moment.
Can I tell
obviously.
you a third reason, too?
Okay.
A third point here, bullet point, no pun intended. And that is this. I don't think the people on the left don't want to talk about the race of the person or the religious motivation of the person if it doesn't fit their narrative. Then they want to just blame guns. If it's a Muslim killing Jews, they don't want to talk about he's motivated by jihadi jihadi thoughts or whatever you want to say. They just want to say, oh, it's guns, unless the motive fits their narrative. So I can guarantee you, if this were a white supremacist that had killed these people in Australia or at Brown University, the left would be talking today not about gun control. They would be talking about white supremacy.
Uh-huh.
You see what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
So, by the way,
They'd be talking about the motivation.
they'd be talking about the motivation because it fits their narrative, okay, that they want to talk about. I think the people on the right are pretty consistent on this. We don't care about the narrative. We care about what is the motivation for the killing in the first place. Not guns don't get out of their, don't get out of the cabinet at home and walk out on the streets and that's what the left acts like, and the guns start killing people.
Right.
But they only believe that when it's some motivation of somebody they don't want to talk about. For example, if you talk about quote gun violence in Chicago, well, it's almost exclusively by black males, probably between the ages of 15 and 35. It's probably 75, 80, 90% of quote gun violence in Chicago every weekend, right?
Yeah.
Or every week. They don't want to talk about black on black crime.
Right.
They just want to talk about the guns walking out in the streets and shooting people. However, I guarantee you, if this was a white supremacist, and they do exist, although their numbers aren't evidently as bad as Joe Biden wanted us to believe.
Right.
He said it was the greatest threat to humanity.
Bizarrely, that's what he said.
He said white supremacy was the greatest threat to America. That's what Joe Biden said.
Yeah.
If it were a white supremacist killing people in Chicago, you would hear about the motivation. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I think we need to be consistent here as much as we can. And so when the left says we need gun control, no, we already have gun laws. Gun laws don't stop bad people from doing harm to others. They're going to get guns. That's why they're criminals. I mean, I just don't know how hard this is to understand. Now, this is a secondary issue to what we're talking about here. The tragedy is the first issue of what happened in Australia. Just all these Jewish people trying to celebrate Hanukkah on a beach get just mowed down, and then at Brown University here in the United States, which is in Rhode Island, right? Uh-huh. We don't know who the shooter is yet, and we don't know what his, assuming it's a male, it almost always is. We don't know what the motivation is, right, Fred?
No, there were a group of students. They were in the engineering building there at Brown University, and was
that where is that in
Providence?
Providence,
Rhode
Yeah.
Rhode Island.
On Saturday, they were getting ready for final exams, and some person walked into the back of the room. They got in. By the way, before I forget, they're saying one of the problems at Brown University doesn't like a lot of cameras. So we're not, they don't have that to work with as far as evidence goes. He walks into the back room, just opens up fire. Now, when that story broke, within a couple of hours, they said they had a person of interest in custody. They arrested him at a Hampton Inn in the local area. There's one little piece of video of a guy wearing all black walking away from the scene. But just this morning, we're learning that they've let that person go. They're releasing him. They figured out fairly quickly they really don't have the evidence. It may have something to do with what they believe the weapon was in this case. The guy that they had arrested initially had a 9mm gun. There is a witness who apparently says there was a long-stemmed rifle used. So that's where we are with that. So as of last night, when they held a news conference to say they were releasing this initial person of interest, they basically they're back to scratch again on trying to figure out who did this. But yes, 2 people died there, 2 students. One of them a young lady from Birmingham. We found that out this morning.
Birmingham, Alabama.
Birmingham, Alabama. So very, very tragic. They've canceled all the final exams there at Brown University, and once again, guns being blamed by the left. But the other story that we're dealing with today is the stabbing death of Rob Reiner, comedian Rob Reiner, and his wife. We're just learning that their son Nick has just been arrested this morning, and is apparently going to be charged. But this was a stabbing death. So it goes to the point we've been talking about, is that it is the heart of an individual, not the weapons. People who are bent on this kind of violence are going to use whatever weapon they choose to use. And no amount of laws is going to stop that.
And by the way, I didn't mean to imply when I was talking about the left's counter arguments on the issue of guns that you can't kill people with knives, because we've seen that increasingly in countries where they have very strict gun laws, where frequently Muslims are using knives to kill people in Europe, for example. So this was obviously, as far as we know, not a Muslim involved in the Rob Reiner death. Him and his wife Michelle, his son. I don't know if it's their son together. Nick Reiner has been taken into custody, but obviously knives can be very lethal. So I was only trying to respond to the argument that the left makes. And this is one of those kind of freakish things that seems to happen every once in a while where you just go, what? Now, my understanding...
What's a freakish thing?
Well, just who expects a son to kill his parents? That's a kind of a bizarre thing to have happen. But my understanding is that Nick Reiner, if he is indeed found to be the perpetrator here, has had trouble with drugs and been in and out of rehab. So I don't know what his mental state would have been. Again, he has been arrested and taken into custody, and we don't know if he's actually the perpetrator.
Yeah, it's Rob Reiner is a big name in Hollywood, and he's a movie director. Many people remember him from the 70s as Meathead on the comedy show All in the Family.
Right.
Correct.
Which was very popular, for 5 or 6, 7 years right there. But Rob Reiner, he went on to, go into directing, and he was a outspoken lefty, on many issues. At first, I thought when this story broke, I thought, he's of Jewish heritage.
Yes.
Rob Reiner, and I thought, I wonder if this is another, you know what I'm saying, targeted killing of a prominent Jewish person. But evidently that's not the case so far. If the police have arrested his son that would make sense, because this looked like a well-fortified community. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That he lived in. It was a very upscale neighborhood there in the Hollywood area.
And by the way, for those who are, maybe the name Rob Reiner doesn't ring a bell, our generation certainly remembers him, but you may have heard of movies like A Few Good Men. When Harry Met Sally. I've never seen that one, but The Princess Bride. Okay, he directed those movies, and very memorable and very talented. But like you said, politically very, very left. So a lot of conservatives may have heard of him from that perspective because he's been very vocal about his criticisms of President Trump in particular, but Republicans in general.
I was impressed by Rob Reiner's reaction to Charlie Kirk's death a few months ago. You may not remember this, but Charlie Kirk, of course, conservative, Rob Reiner, liberal, but Rob Reiner was asked about Charlie Kirk's death, and he said, horror, absolute horror. I unfortunately saw the video of it, and it's indescribable. It's beyond belief what happened to him. That should never happen to anybody. I don't care what your political beliefs are. That's not acceptable. That's not a solution. He went on to say, I felt like what his wife, that's talking about Erica, this is Rob Reiner talking about Charlie Kirk's death. I felt like what his wife said at the memorial they had was exactly right. Totally, I believe. He said, I'm Jewish, but I believe in the teachings of Jesus. I believe in do unto others, and I believe in forgiveness. And that's what she said. And what she said to me was beautiful, end quote.
And that came, by the way, so this is, like you're saying, a tip of the hat to Rob Reiner at the time, because he said that when there were a lot of people on the left who were celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination. And Rob Reiner just, said this is wrong. And we certainly need more of that kind of discouragement and criticism of violence as an answer to political differences.
Yeah.
So
this brings us to, I didn't want to have to talk about this, but President Trump issued a statement through his True Social, which is like Twitter. And it's almost, I don't even want to read it. It's so ridiculous. Is that the right word? Trump blames Rob Reiner.
This is a disturbing response.
Do what?
I don't know. I don't know how to characterize it. Go ahead and read it so our listeners understand.
Is it worth reading or no? Don't read it.
Well, you got to read it now. So,
well, he is the president of the United States of America, and
this was highly inappropriate.
He did this on his own. This is what Trump said on his own about Rob Reiner's death. Hold the break. I'll just quote it. He said, "A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, referred to sometimes as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump. With this is Trump talking in third person, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us perhaps like never before. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace."
When you read that to me this morning, I had not seen it over the weekend. I couldn't believe it. Now, listen, we have a lot of listeners. I've voted for Donald Trump twice. Good grief, 3 times. And I like the vast majority of what President Trump has done in office. And so, folks, you can take this the way you want, but nobody should say that after a tragedy like this. That the only appropriate response to what happened to Rob and Michelle Reiner is to say nothing at all. But since you're the president, you say, this is a tragic thing. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family of Rob and Michelle Reiner. And like Rob Reiner said, this is not the response to political differences. And President Trump made it sound like they were killed because they had TDS. And I'm not trying to be overly critical of the president, but that's inappropriate and
wildly.
It's wildly inappropriate. Why say this?
Well, that's warped. That's just, I don't know how else to say it.
Christians cannot excuse that and say, well, whatever he says, I'm in favor. If you're a Christian, you just got to say there are things we all do that are right and the things that we all do that are wrong. And listen, when I do something wrong, the Lord lets me know about it, and my wife lets me know about it, or my pastor lets me know about it. Christians have to be able to separate their political beliefs from inappropriate behavior.
He's saying that Reiner and his wife were killed because they had TDS.
Yes.
I don't know. All right, we'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
There's a game that most of us need to learn how to play. It's a real exciting and rewarding game. And it is a game that nearly every person can play with good results. The name of the game is How to Play Second Best. Now, it's true that this game isn't a very popular one. Most of us don't like to play second best because most of us want to lead the parade. And there's nothing wrong, basically, with wanting to lead the parade. We wouldn't be worth much if we didn't want to be at the front of the march. But this is where playing the second best comes in. For any school child can tell you that a parade can only have a very limited number of leaders. The rest must follow. The real trouble comes when we don't get to lead the parade and must become one of the followers. Not many of us know how to do that and do it well. Too many times we let our disappointment turn into bitterness and we become critical of the one who is leading. All of us have experienced this, having to play the role of second best. Fact about the business is that every one of us must do it every day. No person can be a leader in everything. Every person must follow in some things. There were two brothers once who were commercial fishermen. One brother was a natural leader. The other brother was destined to always be second best. Wherever the two were introduced, the introduction went something like this. Meet Peter and his brother Andrew. They are fishermen. Andrew was always the last one introduced. Even when Andrew was not with his leader brother Peter, he was still introduced like this. Meet Andrew, the brother of Peter. No matter where Andrew went, he was always second best, always Peter's brother. But playing second best didn't destroy Andrew. He knew how to play the game and played it like a pro. And anyone who knows the story about these brothers knows that Peter was what he was because of Andrew. There are some truths we need to learn in order to play the game of playing second best. First of all, second best doesn't necessarily mean one of smaller stature or of less importance. The backfield man does all the scoring and gets the publicity, but he'll be the first to tell you of the worth of the men up front. Then, too, being second best doesn't mean we haven't done our best. And if a person does his best, no one can ask him to do more regardless of what others are able to do. Real judgment comes not from comparing us against another, but comparing our results against our potential. For it's quite evident that all of us do not have the same number of talents. Andrew played the game like few people can. The thing that made Andrew great while playing second best was his deep-rooted humility. And unless you have that virtue, you'll never be able to play the game at all.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
For we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven not built by human hands. 2 Corinthians 5:1.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and Fred. It's a sad day for humanity, so to speak. All the stories we're having to talk about. We've talked about Rob Reiner, the actor and director in Hollywood, getting murdered. He and his wife were murdered in their own home. Evidently, his son has been arrested.
Nick.
One of his sons has, I think he has more than one son, but his son has been arrested for that. And then we talked about Brown University in Rhode Island, where we had a shooter go in and kill 2 people, injure 4 or 6 more, something like that, over the weekend. That was here in the U.S. And then internationally, we had what happened in Australia with how many
15 killed there and 38 injured.
Okay. And it was a Hanukkah celebration on a beach in Australia. It's summertime there.
Yes.
Yeah.
In Australia. And they were mowed down by
father and a son.
Father and a son.
Yep. Which is leading to a lot of talk about the rise of anti-Semitism around the world. There's another story just out of Germany this morning. 5 Muslims arrested there in an Islamist-motivated plot to attack a Christmas market there. And the authorities there say these 3 Moroccans, an Egyptian, and a Syrian were detained on Friday on suspicion of planning to drive a vehicle into a Christmas market in the district of Bavaria. So we're talking about, the immediate reaction of the left to what happened in Australia, gun laws. We need stricter gun laws. Well, we had the tragic stabbing to death of Rob Reiner and his wife yesterday. Now, it's a vehicle being used, and we've seen this before among Islamic terrorists. There was the incident in Paris back a few years ago. And I've got to tell you, we've been dealing a lot, when I'm saying we, AFR News, with the rise in anti-Semitism in this country, too. We've seen it on our university campuses. But also, I was reading a story in Toronto, Canada, I believe it was, where a woman had gotten into an Uber. She was getting a drive from the airport. And she was Jewish, and she was talking to her husband in Hebrew, on the phone, talking to her husband in Hebrew. The Uber driver kicked her out, said, "Get out of my car."
Because she's Jewish.
Because she's Jewish. This is happening more and more and more. So the problem is the problem of the heart. It's not the vehicle used, the gun used, whatever the case may be, but it's what's going on. It's global. I saw one phrase being used. It's the anti-Jewish movement gone globally around the world. We're seeing this more and more, and as Christians, we see a very direct connection spiritually to all of this.
Well, I was looking at a Fox News story, and this is having to do with what happened at Sydney's Bondi Beach. Her name is, I think it's a she, Dion Taylor, communications manager of the Australia-Israel Jewish Affairs Council, blaming the government in Australia for not heading this off, that they have been warning for several years now about what is happening. And it is a woman. Ms. Taylor said, "It started with hate speech, then graffiti, then public demonstrations, then firebombing synagogues, preschools, people's homes, people's cars, and now murder." And she said that Jewish leaders, community representatives, repeatedly raising alarms with state and federal officials and criticizing the governments for not heading this off and dealing with it as these things escalated. And to your point about the biblical realities of this, we can speculate. I don't want to pretend that I know what's in the mind of God and how he is moving in the earth, but it seems like we're getting to the stage where Jews are not going to be safe anywhere. They're and you may see more Jews moving to Israel from Europe, from places like Australia, maybe eventually from the United States, going back to Israel because they are not safe. And don't forget, a lot of this anti-Semitism worldwide occurred because of the Hamas attack on Israel.
Yeah.
On October 7th, 2023?
2020.
2020. And Israel has to fight to defend itself, and that has caused this anti-Semitism to explode.
As we're sitting here talking, folks, we monitor various news agencies. There's a live news conference going on right now. The FBI in Los Angeles just brought it up here. FBI stops planned New Year's Eve Los Angeles terror attack by pro-Palestinian cell. And they're just talking about this in a live news conference from Los Angeles as we're sitting here. So this is happening city to city across the world right now. This anti-Semitism, and it's what bothers. Well, you talk spiritually, but it's and the excuses that are often given. Well, it's just a small group of people that are doing this. We had 2 U.S. soldiers killed in Syria on the weekend by Islamic ISIS. That was killed. The mainstream media does not help things. They think, they're afraid to use the word Muslim, Islamic terrorist attack, all of this sort of thing. Even the headlines that I'm reading up there are saying terror attack. This story that I'm reading here is from the New York Post. They are at least saying it's a pro-Palestinian cell. So this is happening all over the world.
Yeah. Well, okay, let me offer a reason for this. And I'm just offering a possible reason for this, and that is the increase in attacks on Jewish people around the world. And you forget, was it a few months ago in Washington D.C. that Jewish couple came out of the museum?
Yes.
And they were mowed down.
Yes.
Because they were Jews.
Yes.
It was
and actually they were Messianic Jews. They were Christian Jews.
Yeah. But the threats are around the globe right now. It seems like it's more and more. This is not an excuse. This is a reason why this may be happening more now. Okay. So what happened in Israel after Israel was attacked on October the
7th?
What was it?
2023.
2023, and you had 1,100 people murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Then Israel retaliated against Hamas in Gaza, and Israel unleashed on Gaza and innocent. When I say innocent people, I'm talking about non-combatants. I'm talking about women and children who, because Hamas mixes in Gaza. It's a very small place, relatively speaking, and so they mix in with the population, the general population. So it makes it inevitable that if Israel is going to go after Hamas, the women and children and innocent people are going to die. That's a sad reality, but that's just the truth of the matter. Otherwise, Israel's left with just sitting there going, well, we can't do anything to protect ourselves or defend ourselves because a bomb we use may kill people who are non-combatants. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You follow me here?
Yeah.
So Israel's in a very tough situation right there in terms of having to decide day after day after day what to bomb, who to go after, who to shoot, where do you send your troops. And that causes the people there in Gaza, 2 million of them, basically they're living in squalor. They have no hope. There's nowhere, and so those videos of those people gain sympathy around the world when you see a lot of them are AI generated, by the way,
Phony.
and phony.
Mhm.
But they get sympathy around the world, and who they blame on the videos, and who does the world blame? They blame Israel, the Jews, right? So the Jews, here's the scenario, here's the narrative that the Jews are killing the Arabs in Gaza, and they're doing so unmercifully, and they're doing so indiscriminately, and so there's no talk of, okay, let's go back to what started this.
Right.
It almost started immediately that Israel was not supposed to respond, and when they started responding, remember the condemnation? Genocide started. The word genocide started to come up against Israel. My opinion of this is that once you unleash if you murder 1,100 or 1,200 people, citizens of a country like Israel, really you have no right to dictate the terms of the ceasefire. I mean, you really are in no position, Hamas, to say stop because you're killing too many of our people. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I wish nobody get killed. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, it's heartbreaking to see the people in Palestine in the Gaza Strip walking around and like I said, they're living in.
Like you said before, they're living in rubble.
Well, they're living in rubble. They got nothing. They got no hope. They got no future. And yet they still. And also, you got to remember, they are taught to hate the Jews from the time they're 2 years old. So I remember back in the 80s, and this goes back decades and decades, if not, I don't know, maybe more than that. I remember in the 80s, my wife was teaching at we were going to school at Mississippi State University, and she was teaching at a preschool that had international students bring their children there.
Yeah.
So they dropped their children off, and be kids from around the world, little United Nations there that she was teaching. And she came home, Allison did one day for me, and she said, the strangest thing happened at school today. She said, I got this 3 and 4 year old or 4 and 5 year old, and they're Arabs. And we gave them colors and a piece of paper. And, it's coloring time here.
Yeah.
And she said they drew a Star of David. And then they had guns. Then they drew guns. They drew rockets going at the Star of David. Are you following me here?
Yeah.
And I said, what? I said, so I said, yeah, sadly, they're being taught at home to hate Israel.
Yeah.
At a very, very young age. That's a true story.
Wow.
Obviously, I'm not making it up.
Right.
Or I wouldn't tell it.
Right.
Okay, that really happened. This goes back to the 80s. My point is that the children are taught to hate Israel because they're taught to hate the Jews. And when you are a victim of a bombing in Gaza and your family gets killed, and you're going to say, who did this? Well, Israel did. You're going to hate them.
Right.
That's just human nature. So I don't know, short of Jesus Christ coming back to earth, and please come, Lord Jesus, as
Amen.
the Bible says, amen, to bring peace on earth. And it's ironic we're having to discuss this around the celebration of the Prince of Peace coming to earth. But the hatred there between those peoples is so great. It's hard to look forward and say this is going to be worked out and ironed out anytime soon. I'm thankful for the ceasefire that's going on here, but Israel had to, they had to take out another Hamas leader the other day. Well, that's going to cause a retaliation from the other side. Now, we'll say this, and I don't agree with this, but I think people need to understand this. If you were to say to the Hamas or to the people in Gaza, the Arabs there, even people in the surrounding countries or people who hate the Jews and Israelis around the world, you were to say, okay, October 7th, 2023 is when this all started. They're going to say, no, this started prior to that. Why do you think Hamas killed the Jews? Because the Jews were already boxing the Palestinians into this small area. They were living in squalor. They had no hope for any kind of a future. So
they took Palestinian land.
Do what?
They took Palestinian land.
Yes, they put Palestinian. All this build-up, they're going to tell you that Israel started this prior to October 7th. I'm just telling you what they're going to say. And so now genocide is the word being used. Fred, let me ask you this. Is this all political, or do you think this is biblical or spiritual in some way? Because this doesn't involve Christians per se.
No.
We're talking about the Jews don't believe in Christ either.
No.
Okay, so how is this? Do you think this is somehow biblical or spiritual in nature?
I think it's political, driven by spiritual forces. Political in that you have two factions of people. The Palestinians, as you have pointed out, teaching their kids from a very young age that the source of all the problems of the Palestinians is the Jewish people. Well, that's about as far from reality as possible. Israel doesn't start the wars. They defend themselves. Gaza, prior to October 7th, 2023, the economy was thriving.
Where?
Gaza was thriving. There were people from Gaza who traveled every day into Israel. They had jobs there. They go there for medical treatment. But it's the element of the Hamas and the Hezbollah. They hate the Jewish people. They, from the river to the sea, they want Israel wiped off the face of the earth. But they also hate Christians because, and particularly Christians in America, because Christians in America, evangelical Christians in America, love the Jewish people, love the nation of Israel, and support it. So and all of that is a spiritual element. It goes back to Scripture, and the Jews being God's chosen people. Yes, do they need a Savior? Do they need Jesus Christ as their Savior? Of course they do. But they it goes back to the Bible and biblical truth of where we are. We believe that God is not through with the Jewish people, and that there is going to be a great revival amongst the Jewish people someday. But it is, I believe it is satanic-driven hatred of the Jewish people and of Christians who support the Jewish people. So that is the spiritual genesis of all of this.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues. That's the name of the show on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and Fred, you were going to say, Ed?
Yeah, I was just going to add to I agree with everything that Fred said, but it's like when you talk about what does Satan have to do? Why would Satan hate the Jewish people? Well, for the same reason why Satan hates unborn babies.
Yes.
Okay, our spiritual enemy hates anybody created in God's image, and he hates anybody who has put their faith and trust in God, so Christians, and Satan hates the Jewish people because God has made a promise to the Jewish people. The Bible has specific prophetic declarations about the future of the Jewish people, and if Satan can try to obliterate the Jewish people, then God's promise fails. And I think that is at least a partial explanation of why Satan puts such hatred in the hearts of people against the Jewish people. And I would say one additional thing, there's a general spiritual principle here, and that is that when people like leaders in Hamas or Hezbollah or ISIS, and they are constantly feeding you ideas to make you hate a person enough to kill Jewish people, and then they respond and they kill your father or they kill your son or they kill your brother in wartime, that naturally is going to make you hate those people for a very, very long time. So there's specific reasons for this kind of spiritual hostility to the Jews, and then there's just the general kind of hostility.
But you're exactly right. This doesn't happen in the abstract. This hatred, which is irrational sometimes, but still, I'm thinking about. I read about the Civil War, and I was reading a journal of people who lived in the South. There's some people who lived in the South, and they were looking at the Civil War not by the justice of the cause,
right,
that the two sides were representing. That is, the North against slavery, the South wanting to maintain slavery. Now, I don't want. Please don't email me about.
Yeah.
No, it's states' rights.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was states' rights to defend slavery.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So that was a big part of it. I'm just saying, but these people were not in the. They were not. This journal that I was reading from a Southerner's perspective was not about the overall cause of justice,
right,
for the slaves or anything like that, or the overall. It was much more minute in their thinking. These Yankees, these blankety Yankees, came in and killed my family and took our land, and they didn't say, but they did it for a good reason.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They said no, and it was what they're doing to our farmers and our people is savagery and is butchery and is I hate them. That kind of thing. They're talking about the Union forces. So when that happens to you, you don't care about anything else but who killed my family.
A Yankee laid him in his grave the night they drove Old Dixie down. That line. So that's why that's why Apaches hated white people, and then Apaches responded by killing and scalping and whatever and kidnapping, and then white people hated the Apaches back. That's just the gut reaction.
Right.
When someone kills.
And the Indian tribes hated each other.
Yes. That's all the way back to Cain killing Abel.
Yeah.
He hated his brother and murdered him because X, Y, or Z. Everybody has their reasons.
That's why Jesus warns against hatred of the heart.
Yes.
And likens it to murder. Because if you read the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, if you have hate in your heart, it's as if you've committed the sin of murder.
Yes.
So
or even just anger. He says, Jesus, I don't want to run out of time here.
Got a minute to tell us 2,000 years of Christian teaching.
So when we were talking about what President Trump wrote, this is why I criticized it, is because Jesus says, if you call your brother, and he says a name, you call your brother a name, empty head, okay, stupid, moron, you're guilty enough to go to hell. Christians need to remember we cannot water down the teachings of Jesus for political expediency. We can root for a political approach to our problems without watering down what Jesus says, because Jesus is very clear about how dangerous it is to hate people and to be angry at people and call them names.
Right. Yeah. All right, we'll be back momentarily. Thank you, Fred.
You're welcome.
We'll be back with Steve Paisley, Jordan in 5 minutes. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Do you know the largest unpaid and untrained workforce in America? It's not in a factory or an office. It's the 65 million family caregivers. And if that is you, I understand the journey you're on.
Peter Rosenberger has been a caregiver for 4 decades. He's the host for Hope for the Caregiver, Saturday mornings at 7 Central on AFR.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Australian leaders vowing to tighten the country's already strict gun control laws in the wake of a deadly shooting at a Hanukkah event in Sydney over the weekend. The deadly shooting was committed by a pair of gunmen and left at least 15 people dead. Republican Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton says he's curious how these suspects attain their firearms. He doesn't believe new gun control laws will work.
How in the world were they allowed under Australia's very strict gun control laws to have firearms? It's also a reminder that gun control in the end is not a solution. If nobody is allowed to have guns in a country, in the end, only the bad guys will have guns.
The FBI is looking at the mass shootings at Brown University and Sydney, Australia, as they work to prevent any future attacks. David Spunt has more.
The FBI engaged on multiple fronts. The top priority, finding the person responsible for pulling the trigger and killing 2 Brown University students and injuring almost a dozen more, though agents are obviously working on what happened in that tragedy in Australia. Local Rhode Island authorities had someone in custody, a man in his mid-20s. They originally called him a person of interest, but Rhode Island officials now say the evidence is pointing in a different direction, so they let that person go and are looking elsewhere. As for the tragedy in Australia on Bondi Beach, Australian authorities believe both suspects are neutralized, a father and son duo. The father dead, the son in custody. The FBI still assisting, even though this is another country.
Police are investigating the apparent murder of famous actor and director Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle, who were found dead yesterday. Jonathan Hunt reporting from Brentwood, California.
Police continue to go through the property as they investigate the deaths of 2 people whose identities the police are still refusing to confirm, even as the Reiner family released a statement confirming indeed that those who were killed on that property were the famed director Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle. Police did confirm that the call for help came from inside the family home. We believe that may have come from one of the Reiner's daughters, Romy. There is some reporting that police have been questioning 32-year-old Nick Reiner.
Support for President Donald Trump has been falling over concerns about his handling of the economy. Counselor to the Treasury Secretary, Joe Livornia, discusses how President Trump has worked towards a better economy.
President Trump has pursued an abundant energy policy where he's allowed energy companies to produce energy, and what that's done is it's lowered gasoline prices nationally to under $3 a gallon, which is a 4.5-year low. That puts money in people's pockets.
And finally, the shortest day and longest night of the year in the Northern Hemisphere is fast approaching.
The winter solstice arrives December 21st at 10:03 a.m. Eastern Time. At this moment, the sun is the farthest south in the Northern Hemisphere. This is also when astronomical winter begins, as opposed to meteorological winter, which began December 1st. The days get longer during winter, but it isn't so noticeable at first. As the spring equinox approaches, the longer days are more noticeable. Since the days get longer during winter and therefore have increasing amounts of sunlight, why do the coldest temperatures happen then? AFN spoke with climatologist David Legates of the Cornwall Alliance.
Think about your thermostat. So if you went into your thermostat and let's say it's set at 70 degrees and you turn it down to 50 degrees for 10 minutes, your air conditioner will kick in, the temperature will start to lower, but chances are you don't have that powerful an air conditioner that can lower the temperature that fast. It's going to take a while to drop the temperature. And the same thing happens at the Earth.
He said even though the sun's energy input is the lowest on December 21st, the Earth still has some heat from the previous summer and even fall. The temperature continues to drop even though the sun's incoming energy is increasing.
And by the time we get to mid-February, the temperature drops low enough, the incoming solar radiation has risen enough that we start to turn back over, we start to warm the Earth's surface, and therefore the Northern Hemisphere starts to warm.
I'm Robert Thornton.
More news available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty P.
The loss of a child through abortion, miscarriage, or stillbirth affects the emotional health of families. Feelings of anger, sadness, and regret can be overwhelming. There is hope and healing in the aftermath of a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline at 866-482-LIFE to talk with someone who has been where you are and healed to help others. Your call is confidential. 866-482-LIFE.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning and afternoon, everybody.
Welcome back.
I tell you, I've had a couple rough days. I've been fighting some neck issues, some pain. Doctors are looking at it. I think we're going to get it under control, and yeah.
Yeah, so well, sorry you've been experiencing that. I know you were out a couple of days. He just asked folks to pray for you. It's a particular neck issue that you've been dealing with for quite some time, right?
It's called osteoarthritis that's doing an impingement in my nerves in my neck, and it's radiating down to my shoulder. So I have certain things that I don't. If I'm sitting normal, I'm fine. Just a little bit of pain. If I turn a certain way, man.
Kind of like a crick in your neck.
Yeah, it's like a big crick in my neck.
It stays there.
It doesn't go away.
Yeah. Well, bless you, brother. And we hope that the doctors and the medicine and certainly the prayer can give you some relief.
And we do ask our listeners to pray for Steve.
Yeah.
Valued member of our team here, but also a friend. So
I just a member of the team, a valued member.
What's that?
There are some people who are just members of the team.
That's right. That's right. I reached the valued portion of this.
And I think a lot of our listeners think of you and others on this show as kind of, members of the family. Radio family. So remember Steve when the Lord brings him to your mind.
Thank you. I meet listeners to this show. They come by our studio or else I'm out in the community and someone that I meet, they always come up and they're so kind and so friendly. I'm always amazed that we have been entrusted with the privilege of speaking into the lives of people. I don't take it lightly, and I'm very grateful for it.
What's your first story?
All right, the FBI has uncovered a terror plot that was going to be timed for L.A. on New Year's Eve. It's a credible terrorist threat over the weekend. They've arrested 4 members of a pro-radical extremist group. They are saying free Palestine, free Hawaii, and free Puerto Rico. I didn't know that those were, on the list. Apparently they are. This is Fox News talking about it. Cut 14.
The FBI now reports that it's disrupted a planned New Year's Eve terror attack in Los Angeles. 4 suspects in custody, the FBI identifying them as members of a pro-Palestine extremist group. They're suspected of planning coordinated IED attacks targeting 5 different locations in Los Angeles. But based on the reporting now, that plot has been foiled. We will wait for more out of L.A. or out of Washington, D.C.
They say that the group is a radical offshoot of the Turtle Island Liberation Front.
Never heard of it.
Turtle Island. You live on Turtle Island. You didn't know that?
I did not.
For those,
I live on an island?
You do. It's actually live in the back of a turtle, according to the myth.
Oh.
So before
I didn't understand the last 60 seconds, but go ahead.
Before evil Christopher Columbus, speaking out of the minds of some of these radical, people, before the evil Christopher Columbus came and America Vespucci came and named this place America. Vespucci, thank you. Italian, I believe, right?
Yep.
There you go. Well, he named it. They named America after him.
Yeah.
And Christopher Columbus later found it. I guess they misplaced it in the meantime. But the natives apparently had called this place we live Turtle Island. It's a way to refer to America without any colonialization. So they call it Turtle Island, which is what they say the Native Americans used to call this valued land of ours. Turtle Island.
And this is the name of this revolutionary group that's Palestinian in nature? Or
I think the Palestinian is the cause of the day.
Okay.
Put whatever marginalized group you want, you put whatever makes America sound bad or look bad, they'll lom onto that. As I said, their account posted free Palestine, free Hawaii, free Puerto Rico,
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Why? Who's Hawaii under captive of?
Us, the colonial Americans. Freeing the world from American imperialism is the only way to a safe and peaceful future, they say. So we can laugh at them, but they had bombs. They were built.
Oh yeah. We're not laughing at that, obviously. But so the FBI has caught these people.
Yeah.
They were unable to get through with their plot.
Kudos to the FBI.
Yeah.
Well, we really have, and we've said this all along, even under the Biden administration, when we were critical of the FBI at times, we said that we're pretty sure that the FBI, the rank and file men and women on the street who are doing the investigations are no doubt keeping us fairly safe. And who knows how many of these kinds of plots they have uncovered.
Right, you don't hear about the ones that they uncover a lot of times.
Well, you do this one. But they only have to miss once. This is the scary thing.
That's true.
We'll be hearing a lot about it, and it's a zero-fail mission protecting this country, like the president, like they say with the president.
So our thanks to the FBI for doing their due diligence. This sounded like it could have been a horrific attack in Los Angeles.
Indeed. All right. Do you remember when President Trump sent sent troops of the National Guard into D.C., into Washington, D.C.?
Yes.
To calm down the raging crime that was going on there. And you heard from the left, but crime is already going down. It's going down. We didn't need him. He's overstepping. He just wants power. A new House committee report from the Republican House Oversight Committee claims there was an active effort to downplay crime in the nation's capital, and that Washington, D.C. Police Chief Pamela Smith fostered a toxic management culture. The report comes as President Trump, I'm reading from CNN, has sought greater control over law enforcement in the district, citing a public safety emergency. And the left is saying, they don't need it. They don't need it. We're doing fine. But she has downplayed the numbers. She has put people in and demoted people, moved people around if they refuse to cooperate, apparently, this report says. Anything to put those numbers down to say that she's doing a good job.
Were there any official fraudulent numbers as far as you know? By that I mean not just simply trying to color what's happened in D.C. to make it look like crime is down. Did they actually release fraudulent numbers?
The numbers that they were using, and I don't know if the report goes, if it went into the federal FBI database or not, but the numbers that they were using when Donald Trump wanted to put the National Guard in were based off these fraudulent numbers. Down murders and violent crimes down 40% or something. Yeah, they do anything to, there's two motives, I guess, if you can assign motives. One is that the D.C. chief wanted to make sure that everybody thought she was doing a good job.
Right.
And the other is Donald Trump is a fascist and just wants control, and he's sending these troops in for no reason.
That's typical. What President Trump did in that situation was called for. It was needed. It worked. Mm-hmm. I think the mayor eventually said.
The Democrat mayor
said it worked. What's tragic is anyone trying to skew numbers to make it look like the crime is going down when the crime is affecting the people you're supposed to be taking care of.
Yeah.
So you're not doing what needs to be done in order to protect the people who live in D.C. It's bizarre. And
listen, cities that are under Democrat control for many years at a time turn into terrible places to live, and the quality of life depreciates greatly because violence turns up, homelessness grows.
Businesses leave.
Businesses leave. I mean, look at it all over the country. That's happening, and where Democrats seize control of leadership of these big cities, and I don't see anything stopping that anytime soon because the people in these big cities keep voting for the same people to lead them, and I don't know if you expect a different result or don't care. I don't know, but it's like insane almost the way these. Look what New York did. They're ready for more homelessness and crime, and bring it on.
It's so funny you said that because I was talking to Fred after the we broke for the news at the top of the hour. Fred goes back to his office. I was walking back that way. We were talking about all the crazy things that have happened, and the election of a Muslim/socialist in New York City is already in the rearview mirror because of all the other stuff that's going on.
But we'll see if he increases the quality of life and makes things safer and more prosper, and we'll see if that happens. It's a test tube here.
Yes.
I'd like to be the realist here to caution you that Mamdani and his scheme can operate a very long time on other people's money.
That is true. You may not see any.
You may not see a appreciable decline immediately. And when you do see decline, the first thing
but all you need to do is look at the prosperity and quality of life in Chicago right now, San Francisco, Los Angeles. I mean, these Democrat strongholds are booming. Huh? Am I right?
It's tongue in cheek. I know what you're doing, but to Steve's point, and this kind of goes to what you're talking about, Tim, is that these cities like San Francisco and Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Baltimore. This wasn't a one election and your city falls apart. This has been decades of lousy policy.
They vote for it, though.
And
people vote for it over and over again.
Mamdani, to Steve's point, Mamdani could win re-election, and you would not necessarily see what happens under his policies for maybe a decade. Who knows how long it would take.
There's a little bit of a chicken and an egg thing going on here, too, in that as long as Democrats are offering free stuff to people and getting them hooked on the welfare system, the poor people, they're going to keep electing them. And so whether the Democrats cause the poverty or they're just taking advantage of it to, by piling more bad money after good.
Yeah.
It's not good. And I think the Republicans would probably do better. I'd love a test case. I'd love they did have a Republican in New York.
We have test cases called Texas, Florida, Tennessee.
There you go.
Versus California, New York, and Illinois.
Yep. Seems to work.
See how we're doing there. All right, next story, Steve.
All right. The redistricting battle that's going on now across the country.
Well, I can't get enough of this story.
I know, right?
Yeah, I love me some redistricting news. Bring it on, Steve.
Okay, well,
You ready, Ed?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Buckle up. Republicans plan to pick off about 5 Democrat-held seats in Texas because of the redistricting that they are trying to do there. However, what they're saying is because Donald Trump's popularity among Hispanics may be sagging a little bit, they might not pick up the seats that they're looking for. In other words, they can redistrict, but they might stay Democrat seats. Trump's standing among Latinos, according to, again, CNN, has fallen dramatically nationwide.
Why is that?
Second term.
You believe that? And why? If so, why is that?
Maybe because of Truth Social posts like you read earlier. I think.
Oh, you mean
he's wearing
self-inflicted?
thin. I think, yes. I think most of it, the economy is doing.
Be careful now. You got
I know.
You got your Trump worshipers out there.
I know.
You say anything critical, you're of the devil.
The economy generally is doing better. But what happens when what happens to the thinking when that happens is that people put it in the rearview mirror and it's no longer an issue for them. So it's off of the critical issues thing. So
kind of like the gas prices coming down.
I don't have to complain about gas prices.
Gas prices are coming down, though.
I know. And
yeah,
so
but what he's saying is once that happens, people are happy about it. They move on and they forget that, hey, that was a good thing.
So what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
Kind of like college football coaches?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a whole other discussion.
I would say I don't think this is self-inflicted for President Trump with Hispanics. I think
if it's true that
if it's true
that his numbers are down.
Yeah, and it's typical for a president's numbers to go down between election and then the midterms. Okay, that's normal. Okay, because you make promises when you get when you're campaigning, you get elected.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always keep every promise. I'm thinking about like when President Trump said, Russia-Ukraine war, 24 hours, I'll solve it. Prices will come down day one, that kind of thing. But I will say this. If it is true that his numbers are falling with Hispanics, I would liken that to two things. One would be the general dissatisfaction, and I think this is just a fact, on the prices for groceries, etc. Everything kind of going.
Everything's going up pretty much.
It's either staying the same, which was too high for a lot of people, or even going up. And I'm not saying that that's President Trump's fault any more than gas prices going down would be to his credit. And also, I think the constant banging of the drum on deportations has probably unnerved a lot of Hispanics, which for most people who voted for President Trump, that was one of the major reasons. And he's been doing a phenomenal job on trying to get people who don't belong in this country, who came here illegally, who are committing violent crimes out of the country. But I would guess those two things probably would have contributed to some of the fall off, if that is in fact true, and if it'll stay true leading up to the midterms. But you're saying in Texas, some of the redistricting plans might not come to fruition.
I'm saying that they could get the districts changed, but the districts might not vote the way that they anticipate them voting. And everything. So, hey, you want to talk a little college football?
I want to stay with redistricting.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, can you give me 5 or 10 more minutes of redistricting?
Nothing's better than a good discussion on gerrymandering.
Yes, sir. Let's go to Indiana, California. All right, go ahead, Steve. What's your next story?
The Heisman Trophy winner this year is Fernando Mendoza.
Yes.
Who was a quarterback at Indiana. And I believe it's the first time Indiana.
A lot of Fernandos in Indiana.
ABBA, I think, was from Indiana.
They were from Terre Haute.
Terre Haute.
ABBA.
ABBA was.
A lot of people thought they were from Sweden.
No. From
whoa! Hold the phone.
Misnomer.
Are you saying that ABBA,
Fernando,
that they were from Indiana?
Oh yes,
the group.
Oh yes.
Yeah. You didn't know that?
To this day, I was 67 years old before I found out that ABBA was not from Sweden.
Okay. We just punked you bad, man.
Oh.
I can't let this go on.
Good.
You're gonna go from embarrassing to humiliating.
You two
I'm sorry. No.
are a couple
ABBA
of
was
sorry
from,
dogs.
ABBA Fernando was from Sweden. You were correct. You were misled.
They won a
Steve and I
was misled.
Steve and I, we were joking. We thought you were in on the joke, but evidently you were victimized.
No, I'm a trusting person, Tim.
You are. You have a good heart.
I have a good heart. I thought anything you say, I'm going to believe right off the bat. But now, not so much. I'm not going to get burned
Steve,
again.
All right.
Back to the story.
Well, the actual Indiana Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman Trophy this year, and everybody's talking about his demeanor and his speech afterwards, and how he was. His mom is his hero, and he gave a brilliant.
It was a great speech.
Great speech to his mom. It was very moving.
Some are saying the greatest Heisman speech ever.
Right, that's what Trump said.
Is it?
Okay. It might be. I don't know. Don't believe it.
Again, I'm kidding. That's what Trump says.
Oh.
Well, am I right?
This show's going to be my Waterloo.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
See what you did there.
Trump didn't say that. Not that I know of. I'm just saying that's what he says about a lot of stuff.
Liar.
It's the greatest ever.
Liar.
But anyway, this is Fernando
This is Fernando Mendoza when he won the award, cut 12.
The winner of the 2025 Heisman Trophy is Fernando Mendoza.
Mommy, this is your trophy as much as it is mine. You've always been my biggest fan. You're my light. You're my why. You're my biggest supporter. Your sacrifices, courage, love, those have been my first playbook and the playbook that I'm going to carry through my side through my entire life. You taught me that toughness doesn't need to be loud. It can be quiet and strong. It's choosing hope. It's believing in yourself when the world doesn't give you much reason to. Together, you and I are rewriting what people think is possible. I love you.
Okay, so he also there talked about the fact that when he was in high school in Florida, he was not recruited by colleges. I mean, he said he had like one offer or two offers. So, and he almost quit, like when he was in 9th or 10th grade, he almost quit football, but his mom wouldn't let him or his parents wouldn't let him or something like that.
By the way, in the speech, he did start by thanking his teammates and his coaches, and all the appropriate.
It was a
people.
longer speech than that.
Yeah, but it was very touching, moving, as a lot of Heisman Trophy speeches are. They give credit to their family and their teammates and so forth. But I just thought to myself, well, here's a guy who you may have never heard of him, had in 9th grade, his parents said, okay, move on to horseshoes or whatever else you want to do. They saw that he needed to stick with it and stay with it, and he did, and here he is standing in New York City with the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
Now he'll be on those Heisman Trophy ads next year.
He will in the car going to wherever the Heisman house is going.
And you guys remember during the season, that finish against Penn State. That's one of the greatest
the Heisman
football
moment.
That's one of the greatest football plays in college football history. And
he's of what heritage? What ethnicity? Is it Cuban? I think it's Cuban.
He spoke Spanish in part of his speech.
Yeah.
I think it is Cuban.
I think his family came here from. I think his grandparents. Came here from Cuba.
Yes.
So
he did. I read that it was his grandparents, because there were some wise guys saying, deport his mother, and then the answers underneath it, people with a little more sanity were saying, she's an American. She was born here. It was the grandparents that immigrated.
Well, he's a phenomenal quarterback, and it doesn't hurt to be 6'4", 220 with a arm by God.
Yeah.
Right arm given to you by the Lord.
Yeah.
That and belief in yourself and trust in your teammates and not a lot of hard work, but you got to have the talent, and he obviously has the talent.
He does.
And I'm since Notre Dame was brutally excluded from the college football playoff, I'm going to be rooting for Indiana to win a national, to win the title, the playoff.
I think a lot of Americans are, because
it's about time. I don't. It's kind of there's some brutal competition with Ohio State, Georgia, and et cetera. But
you want to see the little guy win for.
I have my underdog picked out. I think it would be good for college football. Again,
well,
since Notre Dame was brutally excluded from the college football playoff.
Indiana has to go through either Oklahoma or Alabama.
Yeah.
And then they could face Texas.
A lot of red and white there. Ole Miss is, we have.
I'm rooting for Ole Miss.
Ole Miss is in the playoffs too, and
they're going to beat Tulane and then Georgia.
Tulane.
Oof.
Poor James Madison University. They got I say poor. They made the playoffs.
Yeah.
But their reward is going to Oregon.
Yeah.
And play the Ducks. Huh? What kind of reward is that? All right. Thank you for joining us today on the program. We appreciate it very much. Keep listening to AFR. We'll see you back here tomorrow.